the freedom of every person to worship God in his own way, everywhere in the world. On this 12th day of May, 2012, in recognition of his tireless efforts to bring peace and understanding to the peoples of all faiths, to urge humanity to treat the environment with the same love and respect with which we worship God, the Franklin D. Roosevelt Freedom of Worship Medal is awarded to His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew. Born on the historic island of Imbros, the son of a barber and a devoted mother, your hunger for spirituality led you to pursue your education at the renowned Theological School of Halki, where you graduated with high honors in 1961. Your ties to the Orthodox Church were soon strengthened by your ordination to the diaconate at the Metropolitan Cathedral of your beloved island, where you were given the name Bartholomew. Your spiritual quest then led you to the Pontifical Oriental Institute at the Gregorian University in Rome, where you received a doctorate in canon law. Then further studies at the famed Ecumenical Institute in Beauvais, Switzerland, and finally the University of Munich. You returned to Turkey in 1968 to become the assistant dean of your alma mater. Ordination to the holy priesthood came in October the following year, and shortly thereafter, the position of archimandrite in the Patriarchal of St. Andrew. The election of His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Demetrios in 1972 proved one of the most important events in your life. Under his leadership, you were made director of his patriarchal office, Bishop of Asia Minor, and in January of 1990, Metropolitan of Chalcedon. For nearly 20 years, you devoted yourself to his service, and upon his death in October 1991, you were unanimously elected Archbishop of Constantinople, New Rome, and Ecumenical Patriarch. As the spiritual leader of 300 million Orthodox Christians, and as Patriarch of the Church that stands at the crossroads of East and West, your passion for religious tolerance has led you to seek reconciliation with the Roman Catholic and Protestant faiths of Europe, to promote dialogue between the Jews and Palestinians of the Middle East, to extend the hand of friendship to China and other parts of the Far East, and to do the same in the Americas. At home in your native land, personal experience has taught you what freedom of worship means. In 1971, the Turkish government closed the Halki Theological School, rendering it impossible for members of your faith to receive Orthodox training in the country of their birth. These same authorities also refused to recognize the Patriarchate of Constantinople as anything more than a local religious community. You refused to accept these measures. You repeatedly called for the school to be reopened and steadfastly refused to give up your ecumenical title. Thanks to your efforts, the Turkish court recently ruled that the government must recognize the Ecumenical Patriarchate as a legal institution with international standing, although sadly the school remains closed. Throughout, however, you never turned to bitterness, but continued to preach the gospel of reconciliation between your fellow Muslim and Christian countrymen, setting an example for us all. Not content to confine yourself to the great spiritual issues of our time, you have also reminded us that we must do more to protect God's creation, that humanity and nature form a seamless garment of existence, and that as such, there is no escaping the responsibility for our environment. Like Franklin Roosevelt, you have called for the protection of that most intimate of human rights, the right of all people to worship according to the dictates of their own conscience. You have also urged us not to forget our responsibilities to our neighbors, be they Christian, Muslim, Jew, or any other faith, or to our planet, which is home to each of us. Your spirit of tolerance remains a beacon of hope for humanity, and for this, we thank and honor you today. And may I invite Bishop Athenagoras of Sinop to join me on the podium to present the award.
To worship freely is to breathe. In the 4th century, our venerable predecessor on the throne of Constantinople, St. Gregory the Theologian, identified the capacity to remember God in prayer with the ability to breathe. Your Majesty, Your Excellency, Mr. Prime Minister, Your Excellencies, esteemed Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt, honorable board members of the Roosevelt Foundation, beloved fellow laureates, distinguished brothers and sisters. It is a profound privilege and sincere delight to stand beside other esteemed recipients of the Franklin Roosevelt Freedom Awards in order to accept the Freedom of Worship Medal. 3 dimensions of our life and ministry have inspired us over the years to pursue with sacred passion the goal of religious freedom. The first dimension is the experience and expression of the Orthodox Christian faith and spirituality under difficult conditions on our native island of Imbros, where so many of our properties were unfairly confiscated over the last century, and later in the historical theological school of Halki in Turkey, which was forcibly closed 40 years ago. Over the last 2 decades, we have consistently, albeit humbly and respectfully, defended the fundamental rights of our Church to train its leaders and educate its clergy in order to maintain the spiritual legacy of the Church of Constantinople for over 17 centuries. Our childhood reminiscences of discussions in our parents' village coffee shop, and our memorable formation through worship and study in our alma mater on the mountaintop of the quaint island of Halki, instilled in us the desire and advocacy for religious freedom. This is much more than a simply theory or ideology. It is a conviction and a way of life learned through conversation and deliberation, as a small minority in a predominantly Muslim nation. And we know that such an exchange can bear fruit precisely because we have lived the results of goodwill and moral integrity, which can sometimes silently accomplish far more than political pressure or legal coercion. The second dimension that shaped our ministry with regard to freedom of worship is the mission of the Ecumenical Patriarchate through the centuries. Søren Kierkegaard once said, "The most tremendous thing granted to the human being is choice, freedom." Indeed, authentic humanity is only realized through the free act of relationship with others. Freedom is a natural and inherent trait. However, it is also a divine gift and an ongoing task acquired through much effort and dialogue. Freedom is never solitary, but always social. As we stated after the tragedy of September 11th on the site of Ground Zero in New York City, on this planet created by God for us all, there is room for us all. The Ecumenical Patriarchate has historically assumed a pioneering role in establishing and encouraging theological dialogues with other Christian confessions and religious deliberations with other faith communities. We consider it true to the Orthodox tradition, despite the fact that we often face severe criticism and slander, diligently and deliberately to avoid any form of propaganda or proselytism. What we seek at all times is honest encounter and humble engagement with every human being as our neighbor. After all, the identity of our Church as ecumenical implies an opening of windows to other churches and religions. Surely this is an essential feature of relating free worship to breathing. Finally, the third dimension that has guided our tenure is the appreciation of the beauty of God's creation. This is why we have perceived and proclaimed the intimate connection between the natural environment and the freedom of worship. For the heavens declare the glory of God. Οι ουρανοί διηγούνται δόξαν Θεού in Greek. Our interrelationship as human beings not only embraces all our fellow humans, but also extends to the entire created order. Humankind and the natural world comprise a seamless garment, as it is said, which we can perceive when we open the eyes of our heart to the beauty of the world as created by God, who saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good, altogether beautiful. There is a cosmic aspect to freedom of worship. In the 7th century, St. Maximus the Confessor spoke of cosmic liturgy. We have persistently emphasized that the roots of the so-called ecological crisis are not primarily economic or technological, but spiritual and ethical. The crisis lies not so much in the environment itself, but in our awareness and treatment of our planet's resources. Therefore, there is a direct link between the way we relate to the creation and the way we worship God. The world is nothing less than a gift of God and a sacrament of divine presence. Your Majesty, dear friends, none of us has the right to withhold the fundamental birthright and innate prerogative of every human being to worship freely. To stifle religious freedom is to deny human life, for to worship freely is to breathe. May God bless you all. Thank you.